The silence after the final note felt heavier than the applause that once shook the walls. For decades, her voice had filled churches, stadiums, and living rooms across America. It rose from wooden pews in Detroit to the grand stages of Washington, D.C., carrying something more than melody. It carried survival. It carried dignity. It carried truth. Long before the world crowned her the Queen of Soul, she was just a young girl standing in a church, watching adults close their eyes when she sang. They did not clap at first. They listened. And in that listening, something sacred was born. But how does a child who lost her mother at 10, who became a mother herself before turning 13, grow into a woman the world would later call the greatest singer of all time? In 1961, she stepped beyond gospel and into the world of popular music. The move changed everything. Years later, the Respect song would not only define Aretha Franklin's career, it would define an era. That anthem would echo through civil rights marches, kitchen radios, and presidential ceremonies, eventually earning her Grammy Awards and a permanent place in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. And then there was that night in 2015, when she sat at the piano and sang a natural woman. A president wiped away tears. This is not just the story of fame. This is the story of Aretha Franklin, the woman behind the voice. Before the world knew her as the Queen of Soul, she was a child sitting quietly in a modest home in Memphis, Tennessee. The air was thick with sermons and hymns. Her father was a powerful Baptist preacher. Her mother was a gospel singer with a gentle presence. Music was not decoration in that house. It was survival. When she was 6, her mother left. The house grew quieter in ways a child cannot explain. 4 years later, her mother died of a heart attack. Grief arrived early, and it stayed in Detroit, where she was raised. The church became more than a place of worship. It became a refuge. When young Aretha Franklin sang, grown men wept, women closed their eyes. The sound that came out of her did not feel rehearsed. It felt lived, but childhood did not last long. Just shy of her 13th birthday, she gave birth to her first son. Less than 2 years later, she had another child. While other girls worried about school dances, she was learning how to balance diapers and destiny. The weight of responsibility shaped her voice. You can hear it in the way she held a note steady, almost defiant. Gospel was her foundation. She recorded her first album as a teenager, rooted deeply in church tradition. Yet by 1961, she made a decision that would alter the course of American music. Aretha Franklin stepped out of gospel and into secular pop and R&B. It was not a rejection of faith. It was an expansion of expression. The transition was not instantly explosive. There were recordings, there were performances, there were moments of promise. But success did not come overnight. She was searching for her sound, something that carried both the discipline of gospel and the grit of the streets she grew up in. Behind the scenes, she worked relentlessly. She studied arrangements. She sharpened her piano skills. She listened to lyrics as if they were confessions. Even before the Grammy Awards, even before the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, even before the world would one day call her the greatest singer of all time, she was crafting something unmistakable. She was building the voice that would soon demand something simple, yet revolutionary: respect. And when that Respect song finally arrived, it would not just launch a career, it would change how America listened to a black woman standing at a microphone. The late 1960s did not just introduce a hit record. They introduced a force. When the Respect song was released, something shifted in the air. It was sharp. It was confident. It did not beg. It demanded. And when Aretha Franklin spelled out R-E-S-P-E-C-T, the word stopped being just a lyric. It became a declaration. The Respect song earned her first Grammy Awards, and it opened the floodgates. More hits followed, more stages, more sold-out nights. By the time the decade closed, Aretha Franklin was no longer a rising talent. She was the Queen of Soul. But titles alone do not explain impact. What made her different was control. She did not simply sing a melody, she shaped it. She played piano with precision. She rearranged songs to fit her emotional rhythm. Other artists performed music. Aretha Franklin inhabited it. The Grammy Awards kept coming, 18 in total over her lifetime. Each one recognized excellence. Yet the real reward was cultural authority. Her voice became part of national memory. When America hurt, she sang. When America celebrated, she stood at the microphone. She performed at inaugural events for 3U presidents. That is not just entertainment. That is history. Years later, in 2015, at the Kennedy Center Honors, she walked slowly to the piano and began singing A Natural Woman. President Barack Obama sat in the audience. Midway through the performance, he wiped away tears. It was not staged. It was human. Moments like that strengthened the argument many critics had already made. Rolling Stone named her the greatest singer of all time. Not one of the greatest. The greatest? The phrase followed her everywhere, and with it came responsibility. She also became the first woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. That milestone was bigger than ceremony. It signaled that the industry itself recognized the depth of her influence. Doors opened wider for women, especially black women, because she had pushed them. The Queen of Soul was no longer just a performer. She was an institution, a bridge between gospel roots and modern pop power, a reminder that technical mastery and raw emotion can live in the same breath. And yet, even at the height of her success with Grammy Awards, lining the shelves and the title greatest singer of all time, echoing in headlines, there were shadows gathering quietly behind the spotlight. Fame does not erase fear. Applause does not silence doubt. And the next chapter of Aretha Franklin's life would reveal just how heavy a crown can become. Fame can fill a room. It cannot always fill a wound. Behind the titles Queen of Soul, Grammy Awards legend, greatest singer of all time, there was a woman who carried fear quietly. According to her biography, Aretha Franklin struggled with depression. She battled alcoholism. She worried constantly about control over her music, her image, her environment. Control became a shield. She refused to fly on airplanes for years. Thunderstorms unsettled her so deeply that she would not travel by bus through heavy rain. These were not eccentricities. They were anxieties rooted in something older than fame. Even as the Respect song continued to echo across generations, she feared the public might forget her. The irony was painful. The woman who demanded respect from the world often doubted her own security within it. As the decades passed, the spotlight grew softer but never disappeared. She still performed a natural woman with power. She still commanded stages that few artists could hold. But in the last decade of her life, her health began to decline. Rumors circulated. Headlines speculated. In a 2011 interview on CBS Sunday Morning, she was asked directly about her health. She smiled. She reassured the public. She insisted she was doing well. The strength in her voice remained intact. Even if her body was growing fragile, her final known performance came in November 2017 at a benefit for the Elton John AIDS Foundation. When she walked onto the stage, the audience gasped. She had lost significant weight. She did not look well, but when she began to sing, the room remembered who she was. The Queen of Soul delivered once more. That was always the pattern. No matter the rumors, no matter the whispers about illness, when it was time to perform, Aretha Franklin rose. In her final days, reports surfaced that her family had gathered in Detroit. Friends visited. The nation waited. Each day brought conflicting updates. She was alert. She was talking. She was resting. Even when loss feels inevitable, it still lands like a blow. When the news finally came, it did not feel routine. It felt personal, because the greatest singer of all time was not just a title in a magazine. She was a presence woven into weddings, funerals, road trips, church services. The Respect song still played on radios. A natural woman still moved presidents to tears. And suddenly, the voice that had carried so many through their own storms had gone quiet. The crown remained, but the woman who wore it was gone. When the news broke, it did not feel like the loss of a celebrity. It felt like the loss of a national voice. Across America, radio stations paused to play the Respect song again. Television networks replayed her performance of A Natural Woman. Churches referenced her gospel roots. Politicians issued statements. Musicians lowered their heads. Journalist Alan Light, who had interviewed Aretha Franklin multiple times, described the moment as both expected and shocking. The family had gathered. The signs were there. But when reality arrives, it still stings. Losing someone called the greatest singer of all time does not feel ordinary. It feels historic. Rolling Stone had placed her at the very top of its list, not among many, at the summit. That declaration carried weight in an industry crowded with extraordinary voices. Yet those who worked closely with her insisted the title was not just about vocal power. It was about musicality, her phrasing, her piano playing, her interpretation of lyrics. She did not simply perform songs like Respect or A Natural Woman. She reshaped them. Artists across generations acknowledged the influence. Mary J. Blige once reflected on the depth of Aretha Franklin's artistry, pointing to the discipline behind the emotion. The Queen of Soul was not accidental. She was deliberate. Her voice also carried political gravity. She sang at the memorial for Martin Luther King Jr. She performed at presidential inaugurations. She bridged sacred and civic spaces in ways few artists ever have. When she stood before a microphone, it was never just entertainment. It was testimony. In Detroit, where she lived most of her life, the morning felt intimate. In Washington, it felt ceremonial. Around the world, it felt respectful. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame honored her not simply as the first woman inducted, but as a foundation. The phrase "greatest singer of all time" echoed once more, this time not as praise, but as remembrance. moments. And in the quiet after her passing, America felt the absence of something steady. The Queen of Soul had given the country its soundtrack. Now the country had to learn how to listen without her. Some stories end with noise. Hers ended with silence. When Aretha Franklin passed away in Detroit, the headlines repeated the same words. Queen of Soul, 18 Grammy Awards. First woman inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Greatest singer of all time. The titles were accurate, but they were not the whole story. Because the real legacy of Aretha Franklin was not a trophy shelf. It was a feeling. It was the way the respect song still plays at family gatherings, and everyone young and old knows when to spell it out. It was the way a natural woman can still quiet a room within seconds. It was the way her voice carried both church on Sunday morning and heartbreak on a Tuesday night. The Queen of Soul did not just perform music. She gave language to dignity. She turned vulnerability into strength. She demanded respect not only for herself, but for women, for Black artists, for anyone who had ever been underestimated. Being called the greatest singer of all time is more than praise. It is a cultural decision. It means that when future generations ask what excellence sounded like, the answer will include Aretha Franklin. It means that every conversation about vocal mastery will circle back to her phrasing, her control, her fire. And yet, what lingers most is something quieter. A young girl in Detroit singing through grief. A teenage mother refusing to disappear. An artist who battled fear but never surrendered her gift. The Grammy Awards remain. The Rock and Roll Hall of Fame plaque remains. The recordings remain. The respect song remains. A natural woman remains. So what does that leave us with? It leaves us with responsibility to remember the music not as background noise, but as testimony. It leaves us with gratitude for a voice that stood at the center of American culture for more than half a century. If Aretha Franklin's music has ever carried you through a hard season, tell us which song it was. If you believe she truly was the greatest singer of all time, write one in the comments. If you grew up with the Queen of Soul on the radio, share this story with someone who remembers. Some legends fade. Her voice does not. And somewhere, in a quiet room, a piano key is pressed gently, and the echo still sounds like Aretha Franklin. Thank you for staying with us until the end of the video. Don't forget to like and follow the channel so you don't miss the next exciting stories and updates. What do you think about this person? Leave your thoughts in the comments below.